Nora, you've written a book that has shone a light on some of the most painful and private parts of your life. What was the catalyst for this?
All right. You know, after the book is called Born to Smile, Life, Love, and Accepting My Cleft Lip and Palate. Okay, honestly, today, the interview, I'm going to be bearing on my soul. I really had issues accepting with my birth destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Was born with a cleft lip and palate. If people were to pick up the book, because of bullying that happened during my childhood years and even as late as 17 years old, I had an issue in accepting it. So what I did was I went for a journey seeking for self-realization, self-acceptance, and really, really saying to myself, Nora, you are born with this birth destiny, accept it, move on. So after me accepting my birth destiny, I knew that the people out there having issues with cleft lip and palate, they may also be in the same situation as I did, not being able to accept. So I said, you know what, Nora, what else is next? So I decided to do the book to tell my story and also to give, a purpose to those people out there having a cleft lip and palate, that it is okay. You have to accept the birth destiny, but it is okay. You can move on. And also a very strong message about anti-bullying, anti-discrimination, and anti-stigma, because I personally went through that personal
Mm.
experience. Yeah.
In telling your story, you've said that you will hope that people find something in it that will help them also, I
Mm,
guess, what would be the best word? Find a way to move forward through to acceptance, right? So
mm.
in telling your story, what do you hope will come of it for others?
For the people that's having the cleft lip and palate,
Mm-hmm.
for them to embrace that this is what God has given us. All right. And
Mm.
for society out there, so recently, there were a lady that actually made fun of, when we are born with a cleft lip and palate, especially with the cleft palate, we do have a problem with speech impediment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so me myself, I had to go for about 1 to 1.5 years of speech therapy
Right.
just to be able to speak without a high nasal tone.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some people out there, because of circumstances, they are not able to go for speech therapy. So
Mm-hmm.
they still talk with a high nasal tone. So what happened recently, there was a lady that mocked and made fun. They call it sengau. In Bahasa Melayu, it's
Mm-mm-mm.
sengau. And it goes like, that kind of thing, which is not funny at
Oh
all. So I am
dear. Yeah.
trying to educate society out there that,
Mm-hmm.
you know what, it is not funny to make fun of people born with a birth destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not everybody maybe have the opportunity to go out and do speech therapy when they were younger,
Right.
maybe, unforeseen circumstances
Mm-hmm.
in the early days of their early days. So even now, when I do interviews, I always also enhance to the parents who are having a children with a cleft palate to take the children to go for speech therapy. So there are many, many messages of why the birth of Born to Smile.
But when you actually wrote this book, I mean, you must have brought out some very bad memories for you as well, I suppose.
When I decided to publish the book, I knew that it was a decision that I made.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Of course, going back to the past, there were memories that were, unpleasant, but I took it positively because I wanted, they're saying that turn your pain into wisdom by
Mm.
Oprah Winfrey. So
Mm.
going back to the past was something that I wanted to do in order for me to instill positivity, because honestly, I'm okay with it already. But initially, I was not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So going back in time, what was your very first memory of feeling like you were different?
I think it started when I went to school. We go to
Mm-hmm.
school at the age of 6.5 to 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when children from the other classes would call you names. Before I go into there, I would like to just explain the variation of a cleft lip and palate. Okay,
Mhm.
some of us are born with a cleft lip, the palate is intact. Some of us are born with a cleft palate. Okay, but the lip is intact. When you have a cleft palate, again, as I said earlier, it affects the way you speak. Okay,
Mhm.
some of us are born with a unilateral cleft lip and palate, which I was born with a,
Mhm.
which it affects your nose, your palate, and also obviously your lip. Yeah.
Mhm.
Some of them are born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate, where you have two split on your upper lip inside your palate, and obviously will affect the shape of your nose. Now, the operations is always into two segments. One, you have the repair work, okay, and the other one is revision work. Now, even when the kids have their repair work as early as, even I had mine at 3 months, but it's only repair work, okay. When you go to school at 7 years old, for instance, there will still be a visible defect on the shape of your nose and also on your lip, and of course scar, because going
Mhm.
to school you cannot, wear a cover stick. I'm going to say out loud, even until today, if I do not wear a cover stick, people can see my scar, okay. And if
Right.
I don't wear a lip liner today, people can still see the, I would say, my lips are not being, it's not defined, because we are born like this. And
Mhm.
for us to, to have a revision in our nose to make it, I would say, as best as possible, we can only do that at the age of 17 and above. So in
Right.
terms of repair work of a cleft lip and palate, you have the repair work and you have the revision or the refinement work. So going to school before your refinement work, you will still have a slight deformity on your nose, on your lip, on your skull, and that is when the kids will realize, or I will realize, that I'm
Mhm.
different. And when the children start calling me names, I know I'm different. And when I go back to the house and look at myself in the mirror, I said, yes, I have a prominent scar. My lip
Mhm.
is not, defined, and my nose is sengit. So that's where the calling of sengit, sumbing, and sengau comes in.
Right. So before you started school, so before you were sort of 6 to 7 years old, you'd had your first stages of
Operations.
operations and stuff. Um, when you were going through that, there was no sense of feeling sort of different then, or were you just too young to
Asha,
compare?
honestly, I cannot remember, because when I, asked my parents, when I started to do the book for the very first time, I asked my parents how they felt when they saw me in the labor room in the 1960s. And in the 1960s, they don't have scanning at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So there we are, my parents, very young couple, expecting their firstborn child, going into the labor room and seeing the child being born different. So it was quite, quite a surprise. And my mother was very, very, well, she was, I would say, devastated that time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the thing is, I cannot remember, to answer you, I cannot remember before the surgery.
Mm-hmm.
But my parents did say that I started my first surgery to repair my defect at the age of 3 months.
Right. So how many had you had before sort of the age of 6 or 7?
Before the age of 6 or 7, maybe about three. Okay,
Okay.
and then I went on. My last surgery was when I was 30 years old. So I've had about 8 to 10 surgeries to repair my broken palate, my broken lip, and my broken nose.
Okay. I love how you call it your birth destiny.
Yes.
That's such a beautiful way of saying something that's actually very true, right? Um, so what was your childhood like before you started school then? Do you have memories of just being, were you a tomboy? Were you a girly girl? Like what was growing up in your household like then?
You're talking about before I went to
Before,
school at
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
7 years old?
yeah.
yes.
Honestly, like I said, I really cannot remember much. But if you're talking about when I started going to school at the age of 6 and up to 7, then I can basically relay the story. But before that, honestly, I cannot remember.
It's okay. You're like me. My memory is terrible, and I have big chunks of time where I could have been abducted by aliens for all I know.
I can't. Even
Yeah.
my parents said that
Yeah.
they brought me into surgery, like I said, at 3 months old. Obviously, I cannot remember. And they also mentioned that they brought me when I was about 3 to 4 years old. For the life of me, I memang tak ingat.
Well, perhaps that's just the best way forward for you at the moment, right? So let's go to the school years. School can be a cruel adventure for every child, especially those who seem or look different to the others. Can you take us on the sort of journey of you entering sort of school and having that sort of self-realization by having an awareness of your physical self, and how that journey led you through the school years? You said your operation was at 17 to actually fix your nose, revise your nose, right?
Refine. The word
Yeah,
is refine.
refine.
Yeah.
So can you take us on that journey of the school years for us?
Well, like I said, if we are going to divide into the primary school years and the secondary school
Okay.
years
Yeah.
before the 17.
Yeah.
In primary, I knew I was different. Okay. Most of the teasing would be done by children not in the classroom. Okay. Like when I would go to the canteen and buy food, or if I'm waiting for the car to come and pick me up from school, I'll be at the corner waiting, and somebody would just come and call me things like Sumbing, sing it, and it was very hopeful. Those were the names that I was called. And during my primary school years, my parents sent me to Sekolah Ugama. So it depends on the semester. So sometimes in that semester, Ugama will be in the morning and Kebangsaan in the afternoon, or vice versa. So I would be going to Sekolah Kebangsaan. I went to Jalan Gorani, Dua, and people would call me names. And I go to Sekolah Ugama maybe in the afternoon, and there I would also be mocked or be teased. And these are the names that would occur over and over again.
Did you make any friends at school that
Oh,
kind of at least were your kaki, during these awful
Protected
times?
you.
If I'm saying that I did have any friends, I will be lying. Of course they were nice, friendly girls that that would be nice to me, but I didn't really want to talk about it so much because it was hurting me inside.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to say, hey, you know what, I've been teased by someone in the canteen or something like that. So on very, very, very few occasions, I would just say it in a very quiet manner, but I never really expressed my insecurity, my anger, or my feeling worthless. Because again, after being teased, I would go back to the house and I would look at myself in the mirror and I said, yeah, whatever they call is right. I am Sumbing, I am singing, and I am Singao.
But did those friends ever read on those feelings? That did they ever jump to your defense and fight back or something?
No, not. I would say no, not well. They were all 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. In the book I wrote an incident when I was in Sekolah Ugama. We were all playing. There's a few friends of mine, girls who were all playing Batu Seremban. Oh, sorry, we were all playing Batu Seremban, and one boy, for the life of me, until today, I don't even know who he is.
Right.
And if he's listening to me, can you please identify yourself?
Oh my
Whatever
goodness.
that.
Okay.
I mean, yeah,
Get called out. All right.
yeah, and he called out loud, Subing, sing out. And there I was playing with my girlfriends, and would you believe how I felt at that time? And the rest of the friends heard it, but I mean, we were 9, 10, 11.
Yeah.
But I felt like my world was tumbling down.
Yeah.
And if there was a hole, I would just, go into the hole right then.
Yeah.
At that
It's
time, you don't have your confidence or your esteem. At that time, at a very, very young age. That is why if I will go back to my 7-year-old, and now when people ask me, Nora, why did you do the book? You know what? I don't want the kids to go through the same thing as I did.
Yeah. Did you ever tell your parents about what
I was
happened?
going to ask that. Yeah.
Yes, yes, if the bullying gets unbearable, I would tell my mother about it. I would.
Did
But
they at any point say, "Let's take you out of this school and go somewhere
Mm.
else"?
no, no. But if I told them and say, Mom, I do not want to go to school tomorrow, and then she will go and see the headmistress or the headmaster and
Mm.
tell the headmistress, headmaster that, my daughter does not want to go to school because she's been bullied. And then the principal or headmistress would tell the children in the classroom, do not bully Nora. But
Did that make it worse?
1970s, we have about 5 classes of standard 1 or standard 2, and
Mm.
one class about 50 children or 40. So 40 times 5, that's 200 children times 6 classes. How many children in the class, in the school?
Yeah,
So you
Yeah.
only tell one class, but what about the other classes?
yeah,
Yeah. What about meal times or play times
yeah.
and stuff like that? Yeah.
Or waiting, especially waiting for your car to come when you're alone.
What else did you have to sort of handle at school? What did you have to miss out on because of either your time spent in hospital or um, just being unable to attend?
I think the operations, if I can remember, were done during school holidays.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about schools. I didn't really miss much at schools. My
Right.
parents obviously would always plan the operations to be during school holidays. So
Mm-hmm.
that was not an issue. But I miss, you know, really expressing who I am, like being
Mm-hmm.
myself, because during those years of being abused, I lost my soul. I didn't know who Nora Abu Hassan was. If I were to go back and feel how I felt during those early years of my childhood, I was insecure. I felt worthless. I was scared. I was sad at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
It's hard enough being a child trying to figure out who you are in your place in society. And
School
I
is
mean,
tough
like school
enough
society,
already, right?
exactly. It's tough enough already.
Yeah,
And self-acceptance is tough enough already. What more when you've got a bunch of just, horrible, horrible children,
yeah.
making it so much harder. What do you think was the thing that kept you sort of getting up in the morning and going to school? Like, what was it inside you besides that sort of humiliation and shame and pain and all of those very strong emotions for a small child to have? What also was present in your soul that whilst you didn't recognize it then, you can recognize it for it now as being the thing that actually kept you fighting, going, you're not going to keep me down,
Um, Sorry, I'm a bit emotional because I think it was my parents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, my parents did everything that they could. Sending me to the operations and things like that. And I knew I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to give it up. I don't want to give I don't want to disappoint my parents.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing was I was always how people asked me how I handled it at that time. And I was always talking to someone, asking the person if they read the book, like, why me? Why do you just take my life away? I don't want to get up. Or why don't you just
Mm-hmm.
repair my face? And I kept asking the why me and why me. And only now I've realized that the why me, that the person that I was talking to was my creator.
Oh,
You know, that was when I
yeah.
was 7, 8, 9,
Yeah.
9 years old. And then when I feel really down, I would just transport myself into another world,
Mm-hmm.
and I would see myself at that time. Sorry, I shouldn't be emotional, but I am.
No, that
No,
please
it's
I
fine. It's completely fine.
I
don't
would
say
just
that.
transport. Yeah, I would transport myself into another world.
Mm-hmm.
I would see myself as being normal or being happy, and it went on and on and on. It was just like a visualization process, like, for instance, if I came back feeling battered and bruised,
Yeah.
so I would say, okay, I'm unhappy, I feel unworthy, so I would just do this. Orang kata dalam bahasa Melayu, shock sendiri,
Mm-mm.
Right.
dreaming,
Yeah.
and only when I started going for my self-actualization journey, started going for seminars, that I realized that I was actually harnessing the power of my subconscious mind, which is a law
Absolutely.
of attraction. Because
Yes.
I did that all the time because I wanted to feel good about myself. I didn't know how to, so I just went into this world.
I think that's beautiful because you stepped into a world where you could be Nora, and you just had to catch up with Nora, outside of the dream world and find her later on down the line. But
Mm.
something interesting, Nora, a lot of us don't figure ourselves up until a lot later
Yeah.
down the line
Yeah.
also. So,
Mm.
you're just amazing. And what
Yeah.
the power of your mind and your mindset of being able to do that in those times of adversity are actually, it's a beautiful tool for a lot of kids to be able to use. So I think if they read that in your book, it's something we can teach a lot of our kids to do. um, if you don't mind, I'd like to sort of just touch back on your medical journey. You had your repair and then the refinement, and all in all, up to this date, it's been a marathon, not a sprint. What has that been like for you, sort of going through it in your younger years when you don't really sort of remember much, and then the periodic sort of operations as you sort of became a young teenager and a young woman, and then at 17? um, what was that transition like for you, where you sort of felt yourself typical looking enough, um, that you were able to sort of, I suppose, look back on this journey now as
Mm.
if you're coming closer to your destination, your end, in terms of your purpose, this book, where you are in life right now, all of those things?
Sorry. The question was how I felt after the surgery.
As sort of, the journey along the road, you don't remember perhaps the surgery when you were younger, but the surgeries that you had during the school years, and then you said sort of 17 was when you had the
First
nose refinement.
rhinoplasty.
Mhm.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then the more that you've had sort of after that, like, were there pivotal ones? Were there ones that were sort of much bigger for you than the other ones in
Yeah.
terms of your journey, healing physically and emotionally?
Yeah. I think the first one was when I did my first rhinoplasty at
Mm-hmm.
the age of 17. Okay. Um, what happened was I decided to do it when I was in the book. When I was in Brisbane, I went to high school in Brisbane in year 11 and year 12. And then we had a end of the year camping, or we went out for a trip, and the kids were asked to do a sketch. I was only, in year 12, and one of the very popular girls group, they did a sketch about children that look different.
Mm-hmm.
And they also mimicked the lips and the way they sound. And obviously, I felt very embarrassed at that time, and actually ran out into the toilet and started crying. So when I came back, and I was supposed to go to university the next year at
Mm-hmm.
18. So when I came back, I told my mother, I said, you know what? I need to go and refine my nose. And then I think that was the most significant moment for me when I did a rhinoplasty. But
Mm-hmm.
after the first rhinoplasty, I had a few done because there were some issues with it and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that to me was the most significant change I felt as a young lady. For the
Do,
first time, I felt that I'm a young lady now.
mm. Do you think that also had to do with the fact that it was elected by you, whereas perhaps the other operations were not chosen by you, that this was the first one that you kind of advocated for yourself? This is what
Yes,
I need?
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Sorry, I'm
Because
just going back
again,
to, yeah.
sorry, because again, when you're born with a cleft, whether it's cleft lip or cleft palate, if you look at the before pictures, it affects everything.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Your nose is also deformed. So again, if you do the initial repair, it is just a repair work, but your nose will still be slightly not the same as somebody else that's not
Mm-hmm.
born with a cleft palate and lip.
At the particular time when that sketch happened, when the girls in the other group
That's
did that in Australia,
Brisbane.
in Brisbane, how was it? I mean, like, that sketch was allowed to even
Yeah,
run.
happen. Yeah.
Did the teachers not support you, or did you
Well,
tell the teachers about it?
no, I did not. I guess we were just told, 'cause we all slept in tents. All right. So what happened was the teacher said you all have to every tent must have a sketch. You can do a dance, you can do a drama, or you can do anything, but you just have to perform in front of all your other friends. And
Hmm.
maybe at that point of time, the teachers didn't know that this particular group was making or mocking people who were different.
Mm. The Mean
They will
Girls.
know like
Mm.
what are you going to do, or maybe there wasn't like, okay, 10 number one you go do a sketch on what, 10 number two are you going to do a dance. Nobody knew about it, so it was a surprise.
Hmm.
Nobody knew, so when they started doing that drama, and I just muka I merah padam lah, muka
Yeah.
I merah padam at that point of
Did
time.
any of the teachers get up and come after
Yeah.
you
No,
and
I just ran to the toilet and started crying.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
No, that's okay. You know what, all these life experiences has made me who I am
Mm.
today. And again, when people say, why Nora? I said, you know what? I don't want the children out there. Currently, statistic tells us that 1 out of 600 babies worldwide are born with a cleft lip and palate.
Mm.
Okay. And I don't want the kids out there to feel what I went through.
It's interesting because this whole why Nora, well, that's the answer, isn't it? It had to be Nora to be able to do this for those children and for the parents who have beautiful children like that who are struggling. So that's why Nora, that's your birth destiny, right?
Thank
Um, and you had to pull yourself up by the socks every step of the way because
you.
you had to find that fire inside of you that was going to be the warrior about the rights of these children. So um, it's such an honor to meet you.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you. And I belong to a cleft confident group, and even now, there's a few of us in the group, and some of them have not had the opportunity to go for speech therapy,
mhm,
and even now they are being mocked, being bullied, and I have parents coming to me, mothers especially coming to me that before the MCO, the children go to school at the age of 7, 8, and 9, and the kids are still being called names at school,
mm,
when they play in the garden, even by their cousins. I
mm.
think this has to stop. I think somebody has to say them, please treat people equally and spread kindness and accept all God's creation, irrespective of the way they look, the color of their skin, their height, their weight, or anything like that. Somebody has to say this.
Nora, let me ask you this. Children are inquisitive and they haven't learnt, well, the ones that are brought up with boundaries haven't learnt yet how to sort of express themselves in a PC way. I know, kids have said all sorts of things to me about how I look and stuff like that in a kid way, and they don't mean anything by it. So let me ask you to help parents of those, let's call it more typical looking children, how they can help their children speak to kids who have uh,
Physical
physical
differences.
differences and difficulties in, say, for example,
Mm,
speaking. So when I was at school, there was a kid who had a cleft palate
right.
and a cleft lip at school. And it was very interesting having conversations with her about, you know, what she was trying to say, because sometimes it was very difficult to understand, especially when you're first meeting. It's like listening to anyone with a different accent, for example, strong Scottish accent. I remember the first time I met and I was like, what did you say? So how would you guide kids and parents of kids, more typical, like to sort of start conversations with a child with a physical difference
Mm,
when they want to communicate? For example, I don't understand what you're saying, or
mm.
what's okay to ask, how can we approach?
Understand. I understand. I think they have to be a little bit more kinder. I'm not saying that we want to protect them, because children who are born different and having to go through multiple surgeries, they are vulnerable, they are sensitive,
Mhm.
because look, I have to go to surgery, you don't have to go. So the feeling tu yang orang kata sensitivity tu memang ada di dalam.
Right.
Jadi I would just appreciate if a child, maybe non with a child who don't have a
Mhm.
deformity, to be more kinder in their approach, in their communication. I mean, we are sensitive, they are sensitive, trust me, they are sensitive.
So how would we say it? Like, so if there was a conversation happening, it's like,
Yes.
you know, um, JD has said something to me and I don't fully grasp what he's saying
Understand.
because
Yeah.
my ear is not trained to how that person speaks,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
What would be a starter of that a child could say or an adult could say when they want to understand? Would you say,
That
would you
meaning that
repeat
they
that
don't.
again?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
Could you repeat?
sorry.
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but maybe would you repeat that again to me, because I cannot really understand what you say in the first place.
Hmm.
Okay. After having said that, there is a lady in my group. Yeah,
Hmm.
she's about 30 over, and she did not go for any speech therapy
Hmm.
because again of unforeseen circumstances. So
Hmm.
what happened? A couple of weeks, she actually called one of the service center, and they all just brush her off. I mean, she needs to ask something. She
Mm,
needs, like, if I have problems, anything, I would call a service center and say, hey,
right.
can you help me with this situation? But
Yeah.
the person on the other hand just say, hey, I tak faham you lah. You cakap apa ni? You know what I'm saying? So what happens to these people?
Yeah.
So can we all be a little bit more kinder? And I think there's any bullying awareness campaign, just to say it a bit,
Mm.
that I think parents should educate the children from the houses not to look down people who are different, who are born different.
Absolutely. Different isn't scary. It's just something you haven't seen yet. That's why it's called different. What would you have liked to have told the younger you and any other child just starting out in this journey that perhaps the parents could say to them in your place, basically? What would you like to have known, be told?
Mhm. First of all, love yourself unconditionally. Okay? God has created us all, we are all different. This is what God has given to us, but with determination, strength, and lots of self belief, you can become the person that you want to become. And forget about people saying that you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, because you know who you are. And your value is not determined by your looks, your appearances, or the way you speak.
Wow.
That's what I would say to the
Wonderful.
young child.
Thank you so much, Nora.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Such a powerful, powerful message. You're amazing.
Oh, you are too. We all are. We all are.
Well, I think that, those who've gone through adversity, you are a warrior, you are a warrior with lipstick on.
I love looking nice. I'm not going to admit that. Okay.
Hey, we
Like
all
every
want to
other
look
woman.
nice. I think everybody wants to look nice, and it's not about vanity or anything, but it's like, we want to look the best we can look because it's about self-care and self-pride, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And for those parents out there who are who are listening to me, I'm not going to deny that it's going to be an easier journey. It is going to be a challenge, but take the necessary steps that you have for your children. Bring them to see a plastic surgeon, talk to a speech therapist, and do all the necessary treatments for your children out there. It is pertinent, okay? But they can grow to become whoever they want to become. Don't give up. Don't give up. And also a message about any bullying. Let's be kind, everybody. Let's just be kind.